The most powerful man in New York pointed a finger in my face and said, "You have 10 seconds to sing, or I humiliate you for real." He thought I was just a dirty intruder in his dressing room. I'm Lena Carter, 16 years old, living off favors on the city streets. That night, I just wanted to escape the cold. I didn't know that by walking into that theater, I was stepping into the scene of a crime that happened before I was even born. You think this billionaire is just an arrogant villain? I thought so too. Until the moment I hit the first note and saw his face turn white with terror. Because my voice wasn't just mine. It was living proof of a secret he tried to bury almost 2 decades ago. Before I tell you this secret, tell me in the comments, where are you listening from? The bait I slipped through the service door of the Metropolitan Opera House like someone trying not to exist. Outside, the street was packed with black limos, people in long gowns, flashes popping. And me, hugging the wall, hooed up, trying to become a shadow. I wasn't there for adventure. I was there because the cold on the sidewalk doesn't forgive. And I knew that inside that building there was always something left over. A glass of water, a warm corner, a minute without pitying stares. I walked down a hallway full of prop boxes and the smell of fresh paint, listening to hurried footsteps and voices whispering orders. I found a door slightly ajar with a gold plaque and a name ID seen on billboards. Miles Kensington. I should have turned back, but I saw the gleam of the mirror, the bright lights, the hanging clothes, and thought, just 5 minutes. I went in, closed the door too slowly, and went straight to the darkest corner behind a rack of tuxedos. There was expensive cologne in the air, new leather on an armchair, and a giant bouquet on a table that looked like it cost more than my entire world. I stood there quiet, counting on my fingers the time I could borrow from that luxury. It happened fast. The handle turned sharply, and I squeezed deeper into the clothes. The door swung open and hit the wall. Voices entered before people. Mr. Kensington wants the dressing room spotless. He's in a mood today. I saw polished shoes on the shiny floor, and someone dropping a briefcase on the table. When I thought they were gone, a short silence fell, and a shadow stopped right in front of me. A finger pulled the rack aside like opening a curtain. And there I was, exposed, small, hands raised without realizing it, like a kid caught stealing a cookie. He didn't scream. That would have been easier. He just looked me up and down slowly with that kind of calm that's scarier than a threat. His suit looked tailored even to the way he breathed. "Who are you?" I tried to speak and my voice came out thin. I'm not stealing. He tilted his head, as if he found it funny that I had the nerve to explain anything. Behind him, 2 assistants froze, looking at me like I was a rat on a dinner plate. Miles snapped his fingers, pointed at my clothes, and said, "Do you know how much it costs to be in here?" I took a step back and bumped into the mirror. The vibration made the bulbs around it flicker for a second. I saw my own reflection, messy hair, worn-out sneakers, eyes begging without meaning to. He stepped closer, picked up a badge hanging on a chair, read a producer's name aloud, and said with a short smile, "So you walked in here thinking no one would notice." Then he looked over my shoulder at the door and called someone with the casualness of calling a waiter. "Bring some people in, now. I want to show my guests something." I thought he was going to kick me out. I thought he'd call security, the police, anything. But he did worse. He turned to the assistant and said, clearly, like announcing a circus act, "Get a microphone, if she wants to be in my world so badly. Today she's going to participate." He turned his eyes back to me and pointed to the dressing room exit. "You're going to sing." And the way he said it, I understood it wasn't an invitation. It was a sentence, and out there were people too rich to find this anything but entertaining. The stage of cruelty, 2 security guards escorted me down the side hallway like I was a dangerous criminal. But Miles walked ahead, adjusting his cufflinks, smiling at passersby. The noise of the main hall hit my chest before we even entered. Clinking glasses, loud laughter, muffled orchestral music. I tried to stop, dig my heels in, but a heavy hand on my back pushed me forward. "Keep walking," the guard whispered. I gripped the fabric of my dirty hoodie, trying to hide inside my own clothes, as we climbed the side steps to the stage. The spotlight blinded me instantly. I couldn't see faces. I saw bright blurs, flashing jewelry, and hundreds of eyes turning in my direction. Silence fell over the hall like someone had cut the sound cable. The orchestra stopped. Miles grabbed the microphone from the stand with an elegance that made me nauseous. He didn't look like a monster, he looked like a king. Ladies and gentlemen, his voice echoed through the speakers, smooth and velvet. We pay thousands for tickets today. But true art, they say, comes from the streets. He turned his body and pointed at me. I was standing center stage, shrinking, feeling the heat of the lights burn my skin. I found this little visitor inspecting my dressing room, and I decided she deserves a chance to pay for her entry. Low laughter started to pop up in the audience. They thought it was a skit, a prepared joke. Miles walked up to me and held out the microphone. The metal was freezing in my trembling hand. "Come on, darling," he said, but the mic caught the whisper. "Show them. Sing something. Or would you rather I call the police for trespassing?" I looked down at the red carpet of the stage and saw the tip of my sneaker with a hole in it. The shame was physical. My throat closed up like I had swallowed glass. I couldn't breathe, let alone sing. "She's shy." Miles shouted to the crowd, drawing more laughs. Someone in the front row yelled, "Sing Happy Birthday." Another yelled, "Give her a $10 bill." They were having fun. I was cheap entertainment in the middle of a gala dinner. Miles put a hand on my shoulder, a firm grip that hurt, and spoke close to my ear. Away from the mic. "You have 10 seconds before I humiliate you for real." I looked up and faced the audience. I didn't see people. I saw teeth. White smiles, raised glasses. They were waiting for the rat to squeak. I closed my eyes to erase that aggressive glare. My mind tried to flee, to go back to the cold street, anywhere but that spotlight. But then, in the middle of the panic, an old memory hit, my mom in the kitchen, humming while washing dishes before everything went wrong in our lives. A simple melody, an Italian aria she said was "Our Prayer." My fingers gripped the microphone until they turned white. I wasn't going to sing for them. I wasn't going to sing for Miles. I was going to sing to get out of there alive. I pulled in air deeply, ignoring the knot in my throat, and let out the first note shaky low, almost an apology. The rupture that first note came out dirty, scratched by fear. But the acoustics of the Metropolitan Opera House did something I didn't expect. It took my small sound and gave it back giant. When I heard my own voice hitting the back of the hall, something inside me turned a key. I wasn't on stage being judged by rich people anymore. I was back in the shelter bathroom singing to drown out crying, or on the Queen's sidewalk singing to forget hunger. I clenched my fists so hard my nails cut my palms, and attacked the second phrase of the aria with a rage I didn't know I had stored. The sound exploded. It wasn't pretty, it was visceral. It was a tuned scream from someone with too much stuck in their throat. I saw the change happen in slow motion. By the third line of the song, the sound of laughter died. A man in the front row stopped with his fork halfway to his mouth slightly open. The woman in diamonds next to him lowered her phone slowly, as if she forgot what she was doing. The air in the room shifted from mockery to something heavy, electric. I focused on a blind spot above the audience on the crystal chandelier and let the music pour out. My lungs burned, my ribs ached from pulling so much air, but I couldn't stop. It was like vomiting pain. Every high note was a bill collector for that night, for the hunger, the cold, the contempt. Miles Kensington, who was beside me with that predator smile, took a step back. I saw it out of the corner of my eye, his posture collapsed. He wasn't looking at the audience to laugh along. He was looking at me. And it wasn't admiration, it was shock. He wiped his face, clearing cold sweat, and gripped his suit lapel. His arrogance had evaporated. He looked like someone who had just seen a ghost. I held a long note, a sharp lament that made the microphone hiss, and realized he murmured something, reading my lips, recognizing not just the song, but the way I sang it. When the last note died, the silence left in the hall was deafening. There was no immediate applause. It was that absolute vacuum when people don't know how to react because they were caught off guard. I opened my eyes, breathing heavy, chest heaving, dizzy from lack of oxygen. No one moved. The shine of diamonds seemed less aggressive now. They looked at me like I was an alien that had landed in the middle of dinner. I dropped the microphone, which hit the floor with a dull thud that echoed through the whole theater. The noise was the trigger. Someone started clapping in the back, then another, then the whole room. But I didn't stay to see the glory. I saw Miles coming toward me, and his look had changed from contempt to possession. He reached out to grab me, eyes wide, shouting something I couldn't hear over the noise. Street instinct screamed louder. Run. I spun around, jumped over the sound cables, and ran to the side wing before he could put his hands on me. I didn't know what had just happened, but I knew that look on Miles wasn't from someone about to give me a $10 bill. It was the look of someone who had just found something worth much more. Miles grabbed the microphone with the same hand that seemed to dominate everything moments ago, but now his fingers were tense. He looked at the hall, then at me, and his voice came out lower. "What is your name?" I said, "Lena." He repeated Lena, as if testing the sound of the word. Then he asked a question that made me angry again, because it felt like he was trying to turn this into a pretty story. "Where did you learn to sing like that?" I walked off the stage without waiting for permission, went up to him, and whispered so only he could hear, "With my mother. She used to sing here." I saw his face freeze. It wasn't soap opera emotion. It was like someone had pulled the handbrake inside his head. "What is her name?" he asked. I answered without thinking, with the clean anger of someone tired of being treated like a toy. "Marianne Carter." I'll never forget the way he blinked after that. Once, slowly. The air seemed to leave the room for a second, and his shine, that untouchable man's shine, cracked at the edges. He pulled me by the forearm and took me to a corner, behind a pillar, away from the guests. It wasn't gentle, it was urgent. "Who is your father?" he asked fast, as if time had become an enemy. I laughed without humor. "Seriously? You humiliate me in front of everyone and now you want to do an interview?" He opened his mouth to reply, but stopped. His gaze dropped to my face, as if comparing something. Then came the sentence that forced my life to change. "Marianne. She sang here when I was young." I felt my throat close with rage, and I shoved his arm away. "So you do know her? Because the one who became a shadow after a rich man promised her the world and disappeared." I didn't plan to say that. It came out because I saw the way he turned pale. He didn't ask anything else, just stood there, looking at me like I had hit him with a blade. And in that second, I understood what he was seeing. Not just a girl who broke into a dressing room, it was a consequence. I took a step back and said clearly, so he couldn't pretend later. "I'm 16. My mother had me alone, and she never set foot here again." Miles opened his mouth, but no sound came out. He looked at the hall, where the gala continued as if nothing had happened, and then looked back at me with a different kind of fear, the fear of a man about to be unmasked. I turned my back right there. I didn't wait for security, didn't wait for applause, didn't wait for anything. I just walked fast down the corridor, passing rich people who now looked at me like I was inspiring, and I wanted to scream. When I pushed the service door and felt the cold street air, I understood that my life had changed direction. Because behind me, I heard the sound of hurried footsteps and a male voice, low, calling my name like I was the only important thing in the world. "Lena, wait." The hunt and the kneel, I didn't wait for him to finish saying my name. I burst out the service door straight into the cold street, walking too fast to not look like I was fleeing. The city noise swallowed me, distant sirens, short honks, people laughing on the corner like the world hadn't ended for me. I shoved my hands in my pockets and crossed the avenue without looking, just to put distance between me and that theater. Behind me, I heard footsteps accelerating and a voice trying to keep control. "Lena, stop. I just want to talk." I didn't turn my face. I just pulled up my hood and disappeared into the first flow of people. That night, I didn't go home, because home, in that moment, felt like a target. I stayed circling between stations, stairs, subway corridors, trying to decide where I could breathe without being found. I saw reflections in windows and thought it was security. I felt my phone vibrate in my pocket, and it was just the train passing. And the worst was imagining my mom alone without me there, not knowing where I was, but I couldn't go back and pretend nothing happened. The man who tried to turn me into a joke was the same man who destroyed her life. And I couldn't accept that without exploding inside. The next day, signs started appearing that he was really looking for me. Makeshift posters near the theater door. "Looking for Lena Carter. Information will be rewarded." It didn't say reward explicitly, but it had the tone. A friend texted me, "There's a guy in a suit asking about you in the neighborhood." I crushed my SIM card and threw it in a sewer grate because I knew the kind of power that buys silence and buys the official version. If you've ever been bulldozed by someone with money and contacts, subscribe to the channel, because real fear doesn't come from a scream. It comes from knowing that if he wants to, he changes the story and you become the villain in your own disaster. I spent 2 days eating what I could and sleeping sitting up on benches until I realized something obvious: I couldn't run forever. So I did what I've been known how to do since I was little to not disappear completely. I sang. Late one afternoon, I stopped near a subway exit in Midtown, where people pass fast and almost no one looks sideways. I put a paper cup on the ground and started very low without drawing attention. But the city has a cruel way of testing you. When you sing, you become a fixed point. And a fixed point becomes easy to find. I was in the middle of a phrase when the sound around me changed. It wasn't the music, it was the air. People started slowing down. A guy stopped with a bag on his arm. A woman took out one earbud. And out of the corner of my eye, I saw a group parting ways like someone important was arriving. I kept singing, but my fingers gripped the cup hard, crushing the rim. Then I saw the dark suit, the expensive watch, and the face I never wanted to see again. Miles Kensington crossed the sidewalk like he was heading to the stage, stopped in front of me and in front of everyone. He slowly lowered himself until he was on his knees on the asphalt. He took out his wallet, his watch, his car keys, and put them all on the ground like he was laying down weapons. He looked at me with red, tired eyes and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "I don't want my money if it means I'm going to lose you the way I lost Marianne. Give me a chance to fix it." I stood motionless because his knee on the ground didn't erase what he had done. And I realized that if I opened my mouth there, I could change the fate of 2 lives at once. But I wasn't going to give forgiveness for free. Not after that night. The reconciliation, I stopped singing mid-sentence and let the last sound die in the street noise. The paper cup shook in my hand, crushed, and some coins rolled away. The people around us fell silent, looking at Miles on his knees like the whole city had turned into an audience. He didn't try to touch me. He just stayed there, on the asphalt, tie crooked, eyes fixed on me, waiting for a sentence. I took a step back, more out of instinct than fear, and spoke quietly but firmly. "Get up. You don't buy forgiveness with a spectacle." He swallowed hard, stood up slowly, and I saw he wanted to say 1,000 things. But the first one that came out was the ugliest. "I didn't know." I let out a short laugh. "You didn't know because you chose not to know." He tried to lead me to a chauffeured car. I pointed to the bodega on the corner, a cramped place smelling of burnt coffee and low radio static. "Here. If you want to talk, it's here." No security, no cameras. He looked around like the place was dirt, yet he walked in. He sat at the Formica table, rested his hands on a glass of water, and stared at the surface as if reading his own downfall. I sat opposite him and gave no time. "You destroyed my mother," I said, "and today you tried to destroy me too. So don't come with a pretty speech." He opened his mouth to defend himself, and I raised my palm. "You want a chance? Then I'll give you a condition. Just one." I leaned forward, finger pointing at the table like I was marking an invisible contract. "You're going to use this money to do something that doesn't have your name on it. You're going to open a free music school for the kids no one looks at. In New York, and it will bear her name, Marianne Carter." When I said my mother's name, I saw his face flinch like someone had slammed a door inside him. He tried to pull a negotiation phrase like "let's take it slow," and I cut him off instantly. "No slow. You've had 16 years of slow. I want action." He breathed once, hard, and asked, "And this? Does it change anything between us?" I answered without blinking, "It changes if you're just a rich man apologizing. Or if you're someone who can carry the weight of what you did. If you've ever seen powerful people try to clean their image with a donation, subscribe to the channel, because I also thought he would try to work around my condition. And he tried. Miles talked about lawyers' timelines, doing it the right way, and I stood up, throwing my napkin on the plate as a period. "The right way is now. You want to prove it? Then get out of here and do it." I turned my back and left the bodega without looking back, crossing the street with the traffic noise pushing me. I didn't know if he would follow, give up, or turn it all into a headline. But I knew that if I yielded again, I'd become part of the show once more. The next morning, a text from an unknown number appeared on the borrowed phone I was using. Just an address in Brooklyn and a time. I went, half expecting a trap. When I arrived, I found Miles standing in front of an old, dusty warehouse. He looked exhausted, holding a thick folder of papers and a set of keys. "I bought it," he said, handing me the deed. "The crews start clearing it out on Monday. I've already filed the foundation paperwork. Her name will be on the door, not mine." I looked at the papers, felt the weight of the keys in my hand, and saw a makeshift banner taped to the wall. Marianne Carter Music Academy. I felt my jaw tighten, not with pretty emotion, but with responsibility. Because now it wasn't just about forgiveness. It was about building something that would change real lives. And I knew the next step would be the hardest of all, taking this to my mother and facing her reaction head-on. From humiliation to glory, I didn't tell my mom that same day. I swear I tried, but when I got to the apartment and saw her at the table, hands stained with soap and nails short from a life of labor, my courage vanished. Marianne Carter was my mother, but she was also a name that had been shredded by a theater, a broken promise, and a city that forgets quickly who falls. I left the grocery bag on the sink, feigned normalcy, and waited for the right time that never came. And when I finally blurted out, I found Miles Kensington. She didn't ask where. She just stopped what she was doing and stared at me like I had brought news of a war. "You do not go near that man," she said. Dry. No debate. I tried to explain with facts, no drama. He found me at the Met. He forced me to sing, in front of everyone. I saw her jaw harden, and she grabbed a cloth and started wiping the counter furiously, as if trying to erase the conversation by scrubbing. I showed her the building photos on my phone, the foundation papers, her name stamped on them. When she read Marianne Carter Music Academy, she didn't smile. She closed her eyes for a second and leaned on the chair, as if the weight had returned all at once. "He doesn't do anything without wanting something in return," she said. I answered instantly. Then I tied up the exchange. "It's not for him. It's for the kids." The school grew like fire in dry grass. It wasn't a red carpet ceremony. It was the smell of paint, boxes of keyboards arriving, lessons happening in makeshift rooms, a teacher tuning a violin while a group of kids laughed loudly in the hallway. I saw mothers crying at the door because their son got in without paying a dime. I saw a boy who only spoke in whispers play his first sequence of notes and crack a crooked smile, like he found his place in the world. Miles showed up occasionally, unannounced, stayed in the back leaning against the wall, and left without being noticed. He wasn't trying to be the hero. He looked like someone trying not to break anything else. Then came the invitation from the Met. Not because of him, because of me. A conductor saw a video of me singing in the subway, called me for an audition, and I went with simple clothes and sweating hands inside my coat pockets. When I stepped onto the empty stage during rehearsal, I smelled the same waxed wood, saw the same lights pointed at me, felt the same silence that tests you. But this time I wasn't there as a punishment, I was there by merit. I sang, and the conductor just raised his hand, asking for more. No jokes, no threats. Just work. News of my debut spread. The week of the concert, people who never spoke to me started texting. The school was packed. Reporters showed up wanting an inspiring story, and I cut half of them off, because I didn't want to become a product. I wanted to sing. On the day of the debut, I opened an old closet in my mom's room and saw a dress wrapped in plastic, stored like a wound. It was the dress she wore on her last night on stage before vanishing. I touched the fabric and felt the cold, firm texture, as if time had frozen there. My mother walked into the room, saw the dress in my hands, and froze. "You don't have to wear that," she said. I answered, "I want to. Not for him. For you." She approached slowly, smoothed the sleeve with her fingers, and for the first time in a long while, I saw her allow the past to exist without trying to crush it. When I put it on, the mirror gave back an image that seemed impossible. Me, the girl who was humiliated inside the symbol of the woman who was silenced. And I understood that night wasn't just going to be a concert, it was going to be an answer. I walked onto the Met stage with the spotlight bursting in my face and the entire audience shining with jewelry and suits, just like at that gala. Only now, the silence wasn't of dirty expectation. It was respect. I started singing Ave Maria and the first note came out clean, steady, like I was returning something they had stolen. In the middle of the audience, I saw my mother in her seat, spine straight, hands clasped in her lap. And I saw Miles Kensington 2 rows back, no smile, eyes fixed on the stage like someone holding their own pride in check. I finished the last phrase, the theater exploded in applause, and I didn't wait for the noise to die down. I went straight to the microphone and spoke, for everyone to hear. This song is for Marianne Carter, and for the truth that tried to die but couldn't. Eternal legacy. After that night, everything got more complicated, not in this celebrity sense, but in the real sense, people trying to pull my story to the side that suited them. Businessmen offered contracts in exchange for exclusivity. Journalists wanted to turn my mother into a tragic headline character. Even rich people in the audience tried to pose as I always believed in her, as if they had bought a piece of my path. I learned fast to say no with facts. The school is not a showcase. My mother is not a topic. I won't sing to become a donor ad. And strangely, that's when I saw if Miles Kensington had changed, or if it was just theater. He didn't try to control me. He didn't try to stand in front. When someone called him a benefactor, he cut them off. No, I'm just giving it back. When a magazine wanted a cover with him and me, he refused. When an investor suggested putting the Kensington name on the facade to attract more sponsorship, Miles was the first to say no. He started selling things, not to look humble, but because he wanted it to hurt. A private jet went, a summer house went. A rare watch he always wore vanished from his wrist. And I saw the way he started walking slower, as if learning to be a man without armor. Marianne took longer. My mother didn't open the door to forgiveness just because he knelt in the street. She demanded consistency. One afternoon, he showed up at the school early, before classes, and started helping move folding chairs with the janitor. Not because he needed to, because it was that or run away. My mother saw through the window, watched, and then walked out. She didn't hug him. She didn't smile. She just said coldly, "Here, you aren't a star. You're a father." And he replied without arguing, "Understood." That sentence didn't cure anything immediately, but it changed the rules of the game. The school grew like fire in dry grass. The first warehouse became 2, then 4. Brooklyn, Bronx, Queens. Kids who had never touched a piano started reading sheet music. Teenagers who lived avoiding eye contact started lifting their heads when holding a violin. Every room had a plaque with the name Marianne Carter, and that made my mother breathe differently every time she walked by. I started teaching too, not because I needed a stage, but because I wanted someone there to see, up close, that it was possible. I heard laughter in the hallway and thought, this is why I didn't run away. Miles donated almost everything. It wasn't a one-time act. It was a sequence. And that's important, because anyone can make a grand gesture to show off. The hard part is losing comfort in daily doses, without an audience clapping. He created scholarships, paid for healthcare for forgotten elderly musicians, funded expensive instruments for kids who would never have a chance. And he insisted on signing with the foundation's name, not his. I saw people from his old circle drifting away, saw invitations disappear, saw doors close, and he didn't chase them. He just stayed more present in what mattered, showing up at the kids' recitals, sitting in the back, clapping like any other person. 1 year later, I was already singing on other stages, Chicago, Boston, even overseas, and yet I always came back to the school. Because I didn't want to become the soprano who made it and forget where I came from. In every big performance, I repeated the same thing. I said my mother's name, and I said the school's name. And I saw people donating, not for the glamour, but for the purpose. I saw parents leading children by the hand to sign up. I saw a kid leaving with an instrument case and holding it like it was the future. And in the midst of it all, what surprised me most was the simple stuff. Some days I saw Miles and Marianne talking in the hallway. It wasn't a movie romance. It was a conversation between 2 people who went through the worst and were now trying to build something that would uncollapse again. Sometimes he asked, "Is she doing okay?" And my mom answered, "She is, just that." And that was worth more than 1,000 speeches. And I understood the lesson that bound our fates without asking permission. True wealth isn't what you keep, it's what you repair. Today I sing on stages I never imagined stepping on. But I don't treat this like a happy movie ending. Because the real happy ending is at the school. Kids who were invisible now learning to be heard. My mother breathes again inside a theater without shrinking. And Miles Kensington, he lost almost everything he had in luxury, but gained what no money can buy. A place in his own daughter's life, without being able to command anything, just being present. I haven't forgotten the night he tried to break me. I just don't let that night define me anymore. I turned it into a condition, into work, into a legacy. I would do it all again. And you? Would you have forgiven him? If this story hooked you, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to remember that you can start over. And comment below. Where are you listening from, and what was the worst humiliation you've ever seen someone suffer?